And so I think now we have 3 experts up here. We might have one more joining us. And I really wanted to take this chance. We've heard a little bit about the disruptive nature of technology, of AI in engineering and science, from the quantum level up to robots opening doors. And we will hear quite a bit more of research going on here where these technologies are really just making possible things that people thought would have been impossible just a few years ago. On the other hand, some of these disruptions are dangerous. And there are threats to privacy. Ween evidently showed us some of those threats to privacy may be good, some of them may be threatening your stock holdings. We have concerns about the nature of war, right? We have drones that have been launched in the Middle East and in Ukraine. There is not much yet, but there is coming a tremendous amount of AI control of drones that really are changing the nature of warfare. There's a lot of concern about erosion of trust, the infusion of bias that gets encoded in this technology and projected into the future. Social media itself has threatened, people have talked about and seen threats to democracy. And we've got people in the arts who are really concerned about their livelihoods. And it's one thing to tell people, well, your factory job is going to go away, so we'll retrain you and you'll do something else. That's bad enough. The idea of telling the artists, well, your art is no longer needed, we have machines to make that, and so we'll no longer have human artists. Right? Those are real threats to what's happening. And so how do we hold these ideas in our head? Right? This incredible power we have to transform science and technology and medicine, and the real risks that we're facing. And so I'm hoping our experts are going to walk us through this and give us at least some ideas to move forward. So I'm going to just go ahead and ask the panelists to introduce themselves, give a minute or 2 of explanation of their background, as well as let's get from each of you kind of your hot take. What do you think that is a main message that people should take home? And then we'll go on with some other questions. So we will start with you. And I will.
Okay.
Yes, and let me pass you the microphone.
Thank you. David Perkins. I'm a MD professor of medicine and very interested in AI and introducing it into medical education. I have a long interest in this area, going back to programming mainframes decades ago, which, in full disclosure, were not as powerful as the portables you have on the desk, but were very impressive at the time. Also, first started doing neural networks in the 90s when we started getting data from microarray studies. And at that point, they were, I think fair to say, very intriguing, but in the end, not all that powerful. Not enough data, not enough compute power, and ChatGPT, as you all know, has blown that all out of the water, and so we've gotten interested again. And I should say the part on education, right?
Go for it, yeah. Go ahead and, I don't know if you want to sort of give your hot take on that.
I can. So in terms of education, in medicine, I think it's different maybe than for engineering and computer scientists in a couple of ways. Number one, it's you're dealing with life and death, so there's very little error tolerance. If you have an hallucination that kills a patient, that's very, that's not good, shall we say. And so that raises a couple of very unique problems. One is, I'll switch to self-driving taxis. If a self-driving taxi runs over a bicycle, that's a headline. If a taxi driver runs over a bicycle, that's probably page 16. And medicine is much the same way. So we have really tried to get into zero tolerance. So how do we do that? And so getting back to the education challenge, let me describe the two extremes. In our research team, the way we've approached it, and this goes back to our team in Chicago, we sort of mixed, say half of the team is computer scientists and engineers and the other half are biologists, and we put that all together, and we found that to be very productive in terms of addressing medical problems, healthcare problems, etc. On the other hand, we just introduced a course this summer, AI in Medicine Echo, which was designed to take AI to healthcare, everything from a student to a nurse to a healthcare provider. And if you're in Silver City or Santa Rosa, your needs are very different than if you're in an engineering department in UNM. So the basic strategy we took there was we didn't worry about did they know how to code, did they know how to what a tensor was and all that kind of stuff. But the idea was to teach the concepts so that they understood the concepts so that they could then do a design prompts and use AI and interface with it in an effective, productive way. Whereas going back to the research, we're using the analogous of a large language model where instead of words and text, we have genes and cells, and then fine-tune the model on that basis. So I think the bottom line is for the introducing it into healthcare, it's not one size fits all, but it's designing it for the various providers. And I think I'll stop there and pass it on.
Hello everybody, my name is Trilce Estrada. I am an associate professor in computer science. I teach machine learning to computer scientists. My research area is the intersection of high performance computing and machine learning. My group works on a variety of things. Most of it is developing algorithms for making decisions when you have very large amounts of data and you need to make decisions very quickly. So streaming algorithms for things like dynamic networks, for protein analysis, for time series type of things. So my group is very diverse and very large. So my hot takes, I have 3. I'm going to give you a variety of them. So the first one, in terms of AI as an everything, right? There is a lot of talk about democratizing AI. And AI is like forklifts. Just because forklifts exist doesn't mean that everybody should be using them. So it's the same here. And not because we're trying to gatekeep it, but because you need a level of understanding of how AI works to be able to use it right. There are right now lots and lots of papers out there, so we get tens and thousands, just Melanie was saying, 10,000, 20,000 new citations of, it was Susan saying, 20,000 more citations of transformers just since August. So that means a lot of people are building on top of other things, and most of the time the results are just spurious. They come up with 0.003% improvement in a system that is stochastic. So it's like, come on. What does that mean? In my field, we work, for example, with trying to figure out protein-protein interaction. And a lot of papers come up with things like 99% accuracy. And then when you look at the results, you see that they are not correct. They are not done rigorously, empirically correct. So all of those deductions that they come up with, then they don't hold when you really go and try to use it in the real world. And then everybody's like, oh, but why is it that AI doesn't work? Why is it that machine learning doesn't work? Well, it doesn't work when you don't use it correctly. So AI should not be democratized in that sense. We should know how to use it, but the benefits of AI should be democratized. So that's the part that we need. They need to reach everybody, and they need to reach communities that are traditionally underserved. But again, especially in science, especially in medicine, people should be very well trained. It's not about just downloading TensorFlow and running a model and getting some data and getting some results that don't mean anything. So that's first hot take. So do not use something that you don't really know how to use. Take classes, try to get informed to figure out how to do this right. In the classroom, my hot take is, well, not hot take. I was actually pretty freaked out 2 years ago when we started using ChatGPT and we could see all the characteristics that it can do and all the things that it can do. And I was like freaking out. It's like, are my students going to be able to get a job when they graduate? Because now it is able to do things that before they were just purely the realm of computer scientists that spend times training, right? And it's the same that is happening with, well, staying computer science. I've been calming down over the past years. The thing is, software engineers, computer scientists are not going to lose their jobs. They are still going to be very much needed. But the difference is a computer scientist that does not know how to leverage AI, probably they are not going to be able to stay current. They are going to lose their jobs. Computer scientists that know how to leverage AI, they are going to stay at the forefront. So as educators, we need to be able to teach these new skills to our students. It's not about keeping our heads under the sand and pretend that nothing is changing. Everything is changing. So we need to be able to keep our students at the forefront of science, technology, by leveraging all that. And finally, that brings me to my hot take in the labor market. One of my students is studying precisely what are the skills that are going to be more affected, less affected. And this is not a hot take. I think everybody kind of is freaked out maybe about it. But it's, when we started working with AI, like the pioneers, the idea was, let's create tools that are going to be able to do all the repetitive, boring tasks that people don't want to do, and then we are going to flourish because everybody is going to be doing the arts and the science and all the creative work. And instead, we're seeing the opposite. We are seeing AI taking over all those creative tasks that require a very skilled workforce to do. So what is it going to happen? I don't think anybody really knows, but it's just something to think about. Thank you.
My name is Victor Law. I'm the Associate Professor and Program Director of the Program of Organization, Information and Learning Sciences. Before I get to the academia, I worked in Silicon Valley as an IT person for 8 years, and then get into the educational technology area, basically understanding how technology helps instructions and learning. So when I think about AI, I more think about from a social scientist perspective, like how people use it and then how it impact everything else. And when I think about like the question, kind of like a crystal ball, and say like how it actually works and how it actually impacts, and my answer is I don't know. I have no idea. When I look back, like in the 90s, when I start using Netscape, when I think about like that as a disruptive technology, and I have no idea like social media came into play, and then it has so much impact. And so like when I think about AI now, I try to bring that lens for me, like to think about it and saying, I really don't know like what it can happen in 5 years or 10 years, because like, things will change, and this is all depending on the technology and how people use it. Yeah. So recently, I have like done a study like about like how people use it, and I'm realizing that is people use it very differently to solving the same problem, and it really impact how the whole experience goes, and also how the results come to the people. And like when I look at all my participants, they all enjoy it. They all like see benefit from it. But the benefit is very different. So later on, like I will probably talk about like from the like my experience of teaching my class. So I taught a class about like basically AI literacies to help our students to understand like how to use it correctly. So, and from my perspective, it's not really about like using it correctly, but they have agency. Our students have agencies to use it the right way. Yeah. But like they choose what's the right way it is. And as an instructor, it is very important for us to also letting them know what they're actually learning. So one experience that I thought about it is almost 30 years ago when I took my first Java class. And I struggled like, with my programming problem for 3 hours. And at the end of 3 hours, I figured out I miss a semicolon. After that, I never forgot to put a semicolon. Yeah. So those 3 hours are very productive for me from a learning perspective, but it was a terrible experience to spend 3 hours on a semicolon. The question is, today, do we want our students to learn to put that semicolon? Is that important? I don't know. So maybe there are enough tools that like that semicolon, like somebody will put it there for us. And I suspect that for majority of our students, it may not be important, but for a chunk of students, that can be very important. So how can we think about education, like when we move forward, to think about like, what are things those are important for our students, or for this group of students, not for that group of students. So I think instructors, like educators, need to think clearly about it, because our students do not know. When they face problems, they don't know. So I'll pass.
Excellent. So thank you. And we don't have Stewart Copeland here, do we? Are we missing Stewart? Okay. So we'll have to wing it on some of the discussion from the arts. Stewart is the director of the ARTSLab here at UNM. So if we have other artists in the audience, we'd love to hear perspectives. I think we'll do a quick. I have a couple just quick questions I want to have people touch on, and then we're going to open it to the audience. And I just want to quickly ask. Start with you, Trilce. So you've been working in machine learning for, I think, your entire career as a computer scientist. Can you tell us how surprising is what's happened in the last 2 years? How much did you anticipate it? How much did the field anticipate this revolutionary change? And do you think we're going to just see one revolution after another? Or what do you see next in the actual underlying technology?
Well, like everything, we started seeing little things like, and we were like, oh, that's funny. We didn't think we were going to get there until like 10 years later. And then another thing that was like, oh, that's funny. And we didn't think we were going to get there until like at least 20 years later. And then it was like a tsunami, right? So we went from start seeing things that, but probably as several of you already touched on, was not because of the AI itself was changing. Many of the algorithms that we use today and that are very revolutionary were invented decades ago. We just didn't have the compute power to run them. So it was really HPC that enabled everything that we are seeing today. Without HPC, we would not be seeing all of that. So it was a conjunction of many, many different factors, and then of course the evolution of technology. I do think that there is a lot of noise out there, as I was saying before, but we are going to continue seeing revolutions, because now the amount of people, the amount of talent that is working in this area is exponentially growing. And again, we don't understand fully exponentials in terms of like how many people are really devoting their invention to try to create new things. And so yeah, I do think that things are going to just accelerate from where we are right now.
I'll say that unfortunately I think I agree with you that more change coming faster and faster is what we're facing. So I think this is a moment where we all need to like buckle our seatbelts and hold on tight. And one of those areas is in the classroom. So both Victor and David have expertise and have been involved in these educational initiatives. So what, I'll pass it maybe to you first, Dr. Perkins. Can you tell us what you've seen that's been effective for figuring out how to deal with AI, use AI, teach students about AI in the classroom for students who are not necessarily experts in computer science?
That's a challenging question, but let me start with the fact that there's a tremendous amount of interest and enthusiasm. We had a pilot course this summer that we offered, and over 800 students around the world signed up from 27 countries and 17 counties in New Mexico. Blew me away, and when I had to give the first lecture, I was not used to having 800 people on my Zoom. So I think there is a lot of excitement about it, and understanding that it is potentially very important. And one of the analogies that I like is what happened in 1903. There was this heavier than air object that flew about 15 feet above the ground for about 100 yards at 18 miles an hour, which is the Wright brothers, and totally changed our world, right? And the analogy is AI at that same stage, that it's going to just keep exploding and challenging us. And I sort of tend to think that's the way we're headed. And it's difficult to predict the future. Don't have a crystal ball, but the other analogy is, what is AI going to do? It's going to change everything everywhere. So again, since we don't know what AI is going to do, what's the analogy? Electricity. What does electricity do for us? It's hard to say what it doesn't do, right? It even runs our computers. So I think that's the most specific I can be. And there's a lot of challenges in teaching it. For example, in the medical classrooms, a lot of the biologists are not computer scientists, to say the least. And when you get into this quantitative era, which we're clearly headed into, I think it's challenging, but there's clearly where we're headed. I think is clearly as medicine gets more and more quantitative, and biological science gets more quantitative, it's the future.
So I taught a class in AI literacy about a year ago. So I taught in fall and then also taught in spring. I did not have that many students. I would love to have at least like a quarter of that. But the nice thing is, like, the students, it's a one-credit class, undergraduate class. So students are interested, like they came not because they need to fulfill any requirement. So I do not have too much problem regarding to the technology background. So, and when I talk to them, basically I said, if you can buy something from Amazon, like, you have enough. Yeah, or like do Google. Yeah, if you can do that, like, you have enough background, like, to do that. And I think because of the self-selection criteria, like, those students are already like doing it. Majority of those students already doing ChatGPT, and they are quite familiar with it. And some of them even like think very deep about like those questions about like how to apply it in their area. But they try to just kind of get a broader sense of what it is. But when I think about like what you brought up is, like, we need our students to be familiar with this technology, because when they get out to the field, like in 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, they need to know it in order to be able to have the competitive advantage to find the job and to be elevated in the power of resumes. So this is what I usually tell my students, like, not talk about like what you can do, but think about how you elevate yourself like on the top of the resume so that you can get an interview. So having stories and having experience so that they can talk about understanding what it is important. So my main goal for the class is for them to feel comfortable to explore, so that they don't feel that it's something intimidating. They say, oh, ChatGPT, what it is. Do I need to worry about I'm getting caught being of cheating? So this is one of the problems majority of the students ask me, how can I do it? And my answer is talk to your instructors. Yeah, I think this is also a big problem in institutions. I think now people are more open, but I think 2 years ago there are a lot of resistance regarding to incorporate generative AI in the assignments or in the teaching. But that is important because if we are not doing it, how can we equip our next generations to do it? So previously, I used the examples of the Java programming, and it is the instructor's responsibility to make it clear and say what is the learning objective? So is that semicolon important for you? Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, maybe you should spend at least 15 minutes. This is what I usually tell my students. You need to struggle in order to learn. So don't take a shortcut. So think about almost 30 years ago, if I had ChatGPT, I just dump it. Even I want to write it. I want to learn it. I will write it, and then I say, okay, ChatGPT, debug for me. And immediately I got it. But without those struggling, I will never learn it. So, but the point is, as a student, young student, 20-something, did I know? Did I know what is important? I don't know. I didn't know at the time. So it's the instructors. They who needs to be very careful on everything. I think about it. The semicolon is one over 100 of their class, or 1,000 of their class. So everything that we think about our student needs to learn, our instructor needs to think clearly about what it is. And instructional designers probably is one big piece that can play into the role to help our instructor to think about those problems. And I think this is the one of the important part from education side is helping our students to make the decisions, to understand what is productivity, that I need to do it to fulfill the requirement, and what is a learning that I need to do so that I won't shortcut my learning. And that is the decisions that I want all my students think about it throughout. And of course, our students cannot just do it by themselves. I'm sorry, yes?
Should we bring back punch cards and make sure they know how to put them?
Good question. Yeah.
Because the struggle is
I don't know whether they have ever seen those. Yeah. But this is a great question. Because of AI, I think our industry will change, pretty quickly. And then as an instructor, we need to basically step up and think about, okay, is punch card is something that they should even have an idea what it is. Or something else that we need to pay attention to. So from the education perspective, I think it put a lot of pressure to the instructors. But I think this is necessary.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and
Could I put an addendum on that?
put an addendum on that, and then we'll open up to questions.
Just 2 minutes. And this is to the students, any students in the room, that what we've seen is the opportunities are fantastic. We have graduates, many of the major places, Colorado, Stanford, Harvard, NIH, also Illumina, Google. I have students making more than I'm making, full disclosure. So I would encourage you, it's true,
For all of us.
so don't do academic, no. Academics is also rewarding in its own way, but anyway, I would just say that I think the opportunities are fantastic, and it's happening now, so you're in perfect position to take advantage of it.
Excellent. All right, well, let's get some questions from the audience for the panel. Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking about the example of the 3 hours semicolon.
So in terms of education, so where is that, I mean, there is more a philosophical question, I suppose. So you have the information, you have the knowledge. So where is the balance between information? Of course, one could argue, which AI could, create a knowledge base, but in terms of learning, where is the balance between the knowledge versus the information? And in other words, the bigger car, what is the role of a teacher, right? In other words, the classroom, what does it really look like with the tools that we have, and then hopefully it's going to become only better going forward. So where does that balance between the knowledge and the information?
It's a tough question. Yeah, so like it's a question that it was asked in my doctoral, like not my own doctoral class, when I took my doctoral class. It's what is information, what is knowledge? And I think I probably taught it to my students too regarding to this. Is when we think about AI, majority of those we start think about not information, because it's the data pieces. Yeah, that you just talk about from the blockchain is everything's on the time scale, and then how can we put together those? And when I think about knowledge is when you start putting together that correlation, so knowledge starts building. Yeah, but I think when is human has some stronger critical thinking skills. It's not just correlation. This is what we keep on telling our students. Yeah, causation and correlations are different things. So when you see those correlations, then you need to keep asking questions. And I feel that at this point, probably this is what AI cannot do well. Yeah, which is asking the right questions. Yeah, it will help us to ask questions, a bunch of questions, and then it's up to us to see what are the questions are good questions that we want to answer. And I see there are, this is what, from the education perspective, this is what I want my students to get, so that they know how to ask questions. And coming back to my AI literacy class, this is one of my objectives. Yeah. They have ChatGPT in front of them, so the most important thing is ask the right question. Yeah. So when you know how to ask the questions, you have a good chance. How about this? You have a better chance to harvest the power of AI behind it. If you don't know that, who knows? Who knows what is giving to you? Is it okay?
And I don't know if it's right or right. We all kind of struggle with the same question.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, when coming to this topic of AI, right, it always is argument of people will be unemployed, they will be redundant, right? And now isn't that, kind of being afraid just of the unknown? Like when you watch Star Trek, yeah, they have large language models all over, yeah? It's a computer program, yeah? But still, you see a whole spaceship with people that have a job, right? So they are not unemployed, they can just do better things more efficiently, right? Now, I guess the problem is really to train the next generation and actually properly make use of these tools. Yeah, we see it a lot. Think of when we all studied. Yeah, we went to a library and we would manually search for journals and copy articles. Yeah, you don't need to do that anymore. Yeah, you just Google. Yeah, or you use PubMed. I found with my students, with a very fast kind of grade, that you lose the ability to search. Okay, because they did not look it up. They didn't have the pay, and so they did not value this new technology, or these new features that allows you to save a lot of time. So I guess one needs to focus more on these aspects to make also the new generation value the benefits.
So imagine you are this very big corporation, and it costs $100 to pay you per hour to do something. and it costs $1 to pay ChatGPT to do the same things that you do per hour. So that's the problem. Corporations are going to be potentially greedy, and they are going to not care too much about who is going to suffer and when they are going to suffer. And the problem is, if we don't take control now into the kind of skills that we want to preserve, right? So if all of our skills are being taken over by machines, then we become redundant. It doesn't matter that we have feelings and we have families to feed. The corporations are going to get rid of us just because they want to maximize their profit. So that's the main problem.
I mean, with the Industrial Revolution, the same thing is true. It might be true, yeah? But you can always roll it up, the argument the other way around. So rather than having one company that pays like $100 per hour, so you have 100 companies that pay each one $1 an
Right.
hour.
The
So you have more competition, which lowers price.
The problem is that this revolution is happening at the pace that the Industrial Revolution didn't happen. So it was a much slower change, where people were able to adapt, people were able to upscale their own skills. That's what we need to do. That's exactly what we need to do. We need to be able to figure out what is it that we are going to bring to the table beyond to what a machine can do. And that is critical thinking. And that's the one thing that we are also relinquishing very much when we go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to do all of our tasks without really thinking about it, just copying and pasting. So if we can keep our critical thinking and we can teach our students to keep that, machines are not going to be able to replace us that easily. The problem is if we don't, then we are at risk. All of the high-level education professions are at a big risk of being replaced if we don't keep what makes us human at the top priority in there.
So you were spot on. I think critical thinking is really the important part. There's also domain expertise. I think if we keep domain expertise as the core of our education and research process, we're going to beat the GPTs, because right now they are drowning in information and a lot of it is not relevant. I know Ivan Oransky is coming, but as John Ioannidis has said, 75% of biomedical publications are false. There's a reason that we still have jobs, and it has to do with that.
All right, there's lots of questions there. Let me go to Grace in the back.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is for Victor. Victor, what do you think are some of the well-established learning theories that AI is going to challenge?
Where AI will challenge, you mean? All of those. So, like, yes, of course. I think, like, I will, coming back, like, to the previous discussion, is there are a lot of disinformation, like, in the field. So, one pet peeve, like, in my field is called learning style, because, like, there are numerous, like, meta-analysis suggesting matching learning style with the instruction doesn't work. So it's already proven, like, by the data. But, like, when we go out to ask ChatGPT how we design any instructions, learning styles always coming up, because it's just flood the internet. So the point is, like, we need domain knowledge. We definitely need domain knowledge, because the information in the world are not good. So that piece, like, is kind of helping us to say, okay, our students, when they go out, they should be able to find a job. Yeah. That said, I totally agree that, like, if we cannot harness the power of AI, like, it's put us at a very disadvantage. So we got, like, coming back, like, to the theories. So a lot of the theories are about, like, oh, like, what are the different things, like, different factors, yeah, that are relating to each other. And I remember, like, one of the previous presentation was very good. It's saying, like we can throw in another variable, and then, like, throw in another variable and throw in another variable, and it will blow up pretty quickly. Yeah. So do we have, like, I think it's from the data perspective, do we have the data to actually understanding like that complexity. But at the same time, I think AI allowed us to be able to throw in maybe a few more that we could not understand previously. So I think there are a lot of good power of AI underneath it. And I think part of the challenge of the social science is a lot of the data are kind of the human data, so they are not available out there. Yeah. So as a result, it is harder like for us to actually put together like all the data so that we can understand compared with like such as blockchain. So everything is there, like we can just download. In the past, we have done quite a lot like with Twitter because it was free. But like now, like we have a greedy person like on top and say like you need to pay like 50,000 in order to download it. So like we just pay, get us out of the game.
Excellent. Okay. Well, so first we will end questions there because we have lunch that is sitting there waiting for us. So let's give a round of applause for our panelists.